Jim, you know what that sound means. It's time to move on, and we're going to move on now to the future. The future of wrestling. Wrestling on network TV. WWE left Fox, but NXT has found a new home on the CW, Pix 11 here in New York. Jim, everyone knows what you have done to help wrestling's future, the wrestlers you train, how much you love helping the future of wrestling. What did you think of the future of wrestling on display, NXT on the CW?
I think the future is looking very, very dim. I think we're headed for an apocalypse. And by the way, this is network in name only. I have seen what has happened to the CW network. And did you see they had, right before the top of the 9 o'clock hour, they had 4 or 5 of the CW network people in the front row that they, had waved to the camera, and they talked about them, and they looked like a goddamn subdivision homeowners association. Apparently CW network had like 1.6 or 7 million people on average watching their primetime programming like 6-7 years ago, and now they're down to 300 and something thousand. What the fuck is going on over there?
There's a lot of channels that have been mismanaged. And I guess whatever they're trying to do hasn't been connecting with a broad audience, but that's why they got NXT, a sweetheart deal. What is it, like $25 million a year or something? A really nice deal.
I wouldn't be surprised if this network wasn't trying to pay in fucking food coupons and gift cards. What in the world? Who's the producer of this thing? The fucking Zero Mostel?
Well, the other thing too is they introduced these 5 or 6 white people at ringside as CW Network, and they just stand up and they're waving and clapping. No one knows who the hell they are.
Well, they weren't all white either.
Oh.
I believe there was a woman of color, a wok, as they say.
No one says that.
They don't?
I've never heard that.
People of color, Pac, women of color, wok, man of color, mock.
I've never heard of any of these things. Have you heard people use these?
Well, you have now. But anyways, I was jacked up to watch this thing because we watched NXT back in the day when the Undisputed Era and Adam Cole was good and there was things going on. And then Triple H had a heart attack and Vince went in there and made it unicorn vomit and turned it into a Nickelodeon game show. And we said, oh, fuck this. And we hadn't watched it in a while, but now a new show, new debut. They're in Chicago. CM Punk's on the show. They got some more of them Braun Breakers over there? Or maybe just let's see what they're going to do here, and maybe this will be easier to watch than 3 hours of Raw or, just fresher or whatever. All the talent was in their 50s. Well, Punk's in his 40s. I guess he is, isn't he? Early?
He's in his mid-40s.
Well, mid. Well, that's younger than Michaels and Triple H, but God almighty, I couldn't wait for this thing to be over. What is this? What was this?
Well, let me just say also the steady during the entire switch over from Triple H to Vince, even though it technically was all under Vince the whole time, was Shawn Michaels. And when we have heard compliments from people in the last few years saying NXT's better or you guys should watch it, why aren't you reviewing it? It was always Shawn Michaels is doing a good job. It's definitely not Triple H's NXT. And a lot of it feels like Vince McMahon's... It feels like if Vince McMahon had a developmental 30 years ago. Like Tony D'Angelo is ridiculous. Yes.
I swear to God, I wrote that in my notes. We'll get there. But I said, this is a 1995 Vince gimmick. Shawn Michaels will start. And by the way, the program has the worst theme music ever. I said that about SmackDown last week. I changed my mind. This one, Jesus Christ. What were you going to say?
What was I going to say?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I didn't give you a chance to say it. So Shawn Michaels came out. The Senior Vice President of Talent Development and Creative. And I was thinking, good God, if in 25 years ago, if you'd have told me or Gerald Briscoe or Jack Lanza or Jim Ross or a variety of people, on the roster, in the company, in the office. We're going to make Shawn Michaels a vice president of this son of a bitch. We don't know what the fuck is the matter with you. The most unreliable pain in the ass ever to the WWF. Well, no, the Warriors got that spot, I guess, but one of the most has now become not only a senior vice president, but a bald cowboy. The irony. And is Vic Joseph brand new? Did they just start him now, or has he been doing this a while, the announcer?
No, he's been at it for a while. He's been at it for a good while.
Well, he ought to quit.
He wasn't that bad. You thought he was that bad?
I don't, well, what's Booker doing?
Compared to Booker T ain't that good on the mic. With all due respect, he seems like a very nice guy, great wrestler. Booker T should not be on commentary. But what bothered you about Vic Joseph that's worse than, and I'm not defending him, I'm just curious, everyone else we hear on these shows?
Well, he seems like he's younger and greener at it.
Wow, he sounds so much better now than he did a few years ago. That's even funnier.
Was he the commentator when we were watching before?
He did something before. I almost feel like he may have had a run on one of their main shows, but maybe I'm wrong. But he's been in NXT for a while. We've definitely heard him do commentary before.
I don't know. Maybe part of it was Booker. I don't know what's. A lot of times you have a guy that can do a great promo for himself, but that doesn't translate to being an announcer or a color commentator, and there you go. So Michaels comes out, and he's got the little table
Goofy
in the
eyes?
ring.
Oh.
No, I wasn't even going to go there because the fact that he now looks like, he looks, who would have thought? I, today at 63 years old, have more hair than Shawn Michaels and Triple H combined.
Yeah, but with Triple H, it's by choice.
Would he have made that choice if there wasn't patches up there that couldn't be fertilized? Would you just shave everything off when you had hair like that in the past unless it had left to an embarrassing degree?
The last time I remember him having noticeable stubble on his head, it didn't appear like there were just wide patches of baldness. I think it's a look. He couldn't pull off his look with hair. He needs for the strength for all the hair to be on his beard, not on his head. Otherwise, he just looks like some long-haired weirdo. At his old age, starting to bend over a little more and everything else.
Well, nevertheless. But anyway, so Shawn, back to middle-aged weirdos. So Shawn has a table set up in the ring, and he presents new championship titles. Which is like saying, I'm going to give you a new jacket coat, or I'm going to go out and buy a new automobile car. Vince is gone. They can say belts. Why, of all people, a guy who was in the business back when things were called what they actually are, why can't he say new championship belts?
Is there a chance that Vince convinced some of these other people that this was a smart thing to not use the word belt? Do anyone else? Does anyone else in any... A lot
of people don't think it be like it is, but it do.
Does anyone else in WWE actually believe what Vince was preaching?
I don't. I mean, yeah, Diddy got some people to come to his parties, apparently, so some people will believe anything. But you would have to know that it was just the weirdness of Vince and his, old billionaire mind that didn't like the word belt. There's no other reason to call a belt a title. Because as we've mentioned before, a title is the position you win, and the belt is emblematic of the championship or the title that you hold. It's not that fucking hard, but because Vince, now you've got grown adults handing people belts and saying, here's your title. The fuck? Anyway, so then Triple H comes out and says, are you ready?
Well, they teased it. Shawn Michaels said, I have one question for you.
Well, yeah, I have one question for you. I thought he was going to ask people to suck it, or were they ready to suck it, or whatever the fuck it was.
I don't think they're going to debut on national TV like that, but then Triple H surprised everyone by being there to ask the question with Shawn. The middle.
Well, he asked it off camera. Are you ready? And then Shawn turned around and there was Triple H stepping into the big roar. Everybody, these guys, they get a big pop, they're over. But then when we were ready, here's what we got. Julia. And I'm thinking, okay, horrible theme music. Shawn Michaels is a star. They're bringing out all the names. Not really sure yet about the commentary team. Here's Triple H, another big star. What are they going to start out with? The women's title, Julia versus Roxanne Perez. And I wrote, God damn it. So,
God damn it, she's fine?
No, God damn it. I wanted to see a fucking match. Give me some Braun Breakers. I want to see what the future of wrestling is, not what the future of pissed off middle school cheerleaders is. And by the way, Mike Rome is the ring announcer. He looks like a brunette Beavis and Butthead character.
Is it going to be one of these shows? Are you going to beat up every single person you see on the show?
I'm not going to beat him up. I'm just going to give an evaluation of him. What the fuck is with his hair? Is he upset he's not tall enough? He's got to fucking tease it up like goddamn State Fair cotton candy?
I don't know. Any problems with the timekeeper? Did the timekeeper do anything to piss
Didn't see him on camera. I'll let you know, but old Roxanne Perez, she's the NXT Women's Champion. Julia is the girl that we've heard that they signed from Japan to this big fanfare. Well, Roxanne Perez needs a step stool to see over the top rope. And as I said, it looked like two junior high school cheerleaders trying to do an interpretive dance, but they got pissed off at each other in the middle of it and started pulling hair.
Why junior high school? Why not high school?
Because they're not that big.
Oh, come on. They're that big.
It looked to me like Darlin Dagmar versus Diamond Lil with better hair and makeup. I've seen smoother
that's
street
ridiculous.
fights.
That's ridiculous.
Did you see when
they
Roxanne...
were dwarf wrestlers? You're comparing these people in height to them?
Yes.
Oh, come on.
It ain't a foot difference between Roxanne Perez and either one of them.
Well, look, that's Roxanne Perez. She was shorter, and I think that led to some sloppiness during the match because Julia wasn't working with someone her size.
Oh, come on
someone
now.
Significantly smaller.
Roxanne Perez did a head scissor. She rolled up and put her legs on either side of Julia's head and then whipped them down. And when she whipped them down, Julia stood there for about a second and a quarter and then dove headfirst through the ropes like she was trying to commit suicide. And at that point, I started fast forwarding. I had seen enough.
Oh, come on.
What did I miss? More comedic effects?
There were no comedic effects. It was a good back and forth match. They got the fans into them. I think a lot of people thought this was maybe a way that Julia in her first match was going to win the title. And it wasn't that. Then it was an exciting finish.
It was an exciting finish. It didn't make any sense. Roxanne Perez is the babyface, right?
No.
One would think. No,
she's the heel.
She was the heel? Julia comes out there with the bleached blonde hair and the big outfit and everything and blah, blah, blah. And here's this little teeny tiny. How old is Roxanne Perez? She can't be 19 years old.
Oh, see, now you're being ridiculous. I'm gonna guess 26. Let me look it up.
Oh, bullshit.
Roxanne Perez?
I thought she was the little teeny tiny baby face. And why was she doing all the head scissors and everything?
Based on what Wikipedia says, she is 22 years old, 5'1", from Laredo, Texas.
Well, anyway, the point is they had a double knockout. They're both down. And Roxanne Perez rolls out and walks around the ring on the floor and gets the title belt and rolls in the ring and the referee stops her. And while that is happening, a hooded woman runs from the entranceway and pulls Julia out and gives her a DDT on the floor. And then I believe she chucked her back in or whatever. But Roxanne Perez did some kind of souped up sunset flip, 1, 2, 3. And then the hooded woman pulls her hood off. And the announcer said it's Cora Jade. I have no reason to doubt them because apparently they know who the fuck she is. But Cora Jade is the one who screwed over poor Julia. Blah. You mean to tell me that you thought that was a way you should debut a brand new network?
I absolutely do not think that. I think it was a good match, but I don't think if it was me and I was debuting my show and my brand on a new network, that is not the match I would start with. And I probably would have had less women on the show, actually.
Boy, well, we'll get to that. 23 minutes in, by the way, for just what we've talked about.
The fans were pretty into it. What did you think of the crowd?
Well, what building were they in Chicago? Was that the Now Arena?
Give me a second.
Well, while you're checking, I will bring up that some people pulled up in their cars. They're doing that thing on this show too. But then there was a video of two guys on a couch playing video games, a midget in a mask and some bummy looking guy with an accent. And they were playing the NXT video game. And then they're playing either for or against Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. And then you see, I looked up and there's the NXT tag team belts sitting on top of the couch. So apparently the midget in the mask and the long-haired bum with an accent on the couch playing video games are the NXT tag team champions. And the bum got mad because the midget in the mask distracted him, and therefore he lost against Theory and Waller in the game, and apparently they're going to wrestle him for real next week or sometime. Did you see that segment?
I missed that segment, actually. I did not.
Well, boy, howdy.
The bum and the midget. I don't know who this team is.
I don't know who the fuck they are. But they're seriously presenting their tag team champions sitting on a couch playing video games. And you caused me to lose. I got pinned. You want to play another game?
Jim, as of yesterday afternoon, there were 7,089 tickets distributed, and it was the Allstate Arena, Rosemont, Illinois. This is,
shit.
According to WrestleTix.
So they would have more than filled up, I believe, the Now Arena, but the Rosemont Horizon. So they had, for NXT, 8,000 people that they probably ended up with, or thereabouts. Ain't bad, even in the Rosemont Horizon, which I believe seats about 16 or 18. But the people that were there apparently have been watching the NXT television show because they actually liked some of the things that were going on here.
Yeah, see, that's the weird thing. Even more than like an AEW situation where we see it happen in real time. We haven't watched NXT in a while, and the fans there are into it, it seems. And not a lot of it seems very good.
Yeah, I think it's the idea of that they want to like it, so they're overlooking some things.
You would think with Triple H back in charge, well, not back in charge of WWE, that maybe developmental would look a little bit more like what his vision of that wrestling product was. Not, this where, it's a superstar training program, not a professional wrestling developmental television show.
Well, but let's think about this. Let's say you're a movie producer and you want to remake Gone with the Wind, but the only actors available to you are Moe, Larry, and Curly.
I don't think those are the only actors available to WWE.
Then why wouldn't they
on this show is who they chose to be on this show.
Well, why would they pick these people to be on the show if they had some more of them Braun Breakers?
Well, there aren't a lot of Braun Breakers, but who knows who's in the pipeline.
Well, I know who's on the pipe, apparently. So then Punk was in the back. He's pulled up earlier, and he was talking to Ava. Not Ava Gardner now, mind you. Not Ava Gabor, but Ava Rock. Could you understand a word she mumbled?
She was about the size of Punk. She doesn't really speak in a coherent way. She doesn't have any charisma or personality on the show. And she's the general manager, a position typically given to former wrestlers with lots of experience, not the daughter of a wrestler. No, and it's weird. You could see, and someone said this to me a few weeks ago, but I don't watch too much NXT. Sometimes I'll have it on in the background. You never see her on the show. They've clearly found a way to keep her on the show and minimize her on the show by making her the GM in one segment every once in a while.
Well, the deal was they were setting up for Punk to be the referee in the main event and call it down the middle, but, she had marbles in her mouth. And then Brian Pillman Jr. walked in. He's Lexus King now. Got very weird hair. And he said something to Punk, and Punk said, well, out of respect for your father, oh, no, I'm trying not to be like him. And then Punk gave him some advice, and I can't remember what it was, but basically it was either, admit that you have the genes inside of you or fight against them or whatever the fuck. Well, thank you for giving me that advice. I don't know what's going on there. Any comments on Brian Pillman Jr.'s hair?
Not really. I mean, I don't know why he didn't wrestle on this show. They had a lot of people I would have liked to have seen wrestle on this show instead of some of the other people that wrestled on this show.
Well, that's a perfect lead into the next people wrestling on this show. They did a history package on Zachary Wentz and Wes Lee, and they used to be partners, and there's been ill feelings and bad blood, etc., and now they're going to have a street fight. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, these two were when we started watching the Nickelodeon version of NXT. These two were the tag team that I said, what the fuck? They were just, one guy would do a standing backflip and the other guy would shove him down on top of the other guy. Just clumsy ass tag team shit, prison tattoos, and bad hair. And apparently they're still there 3 or 4 years later.
Well, no, the one guy was fired. He's now working for TNA, but because TNA works with WWE now, he's able to, do stuff like this.
They fired him, but he came back?
He's the one. Do you remember they signed them and they were giving him a push and we checked him out and we really didn't like it. It was worse than AEW from what we saw. And then turned out he was married to some wrestler because they all just fucking marry each other at this point. And it never turns out well. He was married to a wrestler and they had some kind of breakup. She alleged there was abuse. He said there wasn't. And then she put up a picture of him with a Hitler mustache.
He's the Hitler guy.
Doing a Hitler salute. WWE fired him. And then I guess as time has gone on, maybe he's recognized how ignorant and wrong that was. And he's been wrestling for TNA. And that led to the natural, let's get him to work for us without working for us situation.
Christ. Well, Zachary Wentz and Wes Lee had a street
fight. The babyface was
fight.
The Nazi.
Well, I couldn't tell, actually, which was which here, but, well, he's a reformed Nazi.
That's right. We don't know what's going on.
So Zachary was introduced at 185 pounds. Wes Lee was introduced at 178 pounds. If they introduce them at that, doesn't it mean 165 and 158?
They're not going to shave the weight, that's for sure.
Well, what the fuck? You can't tell me that you're introducing somebody that legitimately weighs 178 pounds, has 178 pounds on a pro wrestling program, and expect people to, what the fuck are these children? And again, these two and everybody in their history video look like juvenile delinquents with prison tattoos and bad haircuts. And they're wheeling a shopping cart full of shit to the ring for their street fight. And 40 minutes into this program, the first two men that we've seen wrestle are having a garbage match, and I was bigger than both of them when I was 16 years old. So just real quickly, at one point in the ring, they had 6 chairs. They set a giant plywood sheet up on 4 chairs on the floor, and then both of them got on the apron and jumped off together so they could break it. And then they used the garbage cans and the kendo sticks and the hoopla. And then they had a table set up on the floor, and I don't know which, the black guy pushed the white guy off the top rope, and he flipped to land on the table 10 feet away, but he overshot it and just landed on the fucking floor. And the table's not even knocked over.
Yeah, that was bad.
And bad for him.
Bad for him.
And all right, whichever one was which of these
Wesley was the one
guys,
with the dreadlocks who works for NXT.
which one got up on the ropes and wrapped the logging chain around his knees?
I think that would have been Wesley.
Well, he jumped off and double knee dropped the other guy who was sitting, waiting for it in a folding chair, conveniently enough, and then pinned him 1, 2, 3. And my comment was somebody should call Juvenile Hall.
How does this compare to an AEW match of the similar? I mean, we've seen matches like this on AEW where it's just weapons up the gazoo for no reason. How does this compare?
This was better because it was shorter. It didn't take as much time.
How long did it go?
It didn't go as long as those AEW fucking fiascos go with the and nobody shoved a hypodermic needle in anybody's face. Otherwise, it was, what's the difference?
Well, so far, like you said, on NXT, we had the women's title match, and now we have a garbage match. We had Punk and Ava and Pillman Jr. in the back. What's next?
Well, the 9 o'clock hour with the CW network executives. And then we had Miz TV. Miz, Jesus Christ, we can't get away from him here. Miz TV, the special guests were Oba Femi and Tony D'Angelo. And you said, oh, we got to watch Oba Femi, right? And I said, okay, here he comes. He's the North American champion around there. He's got size. He looks good. He's got some oomph to him. He has 2 names that nobody has ever been called before. And as he sits down, I'm thinking, okay, they might have something here. And then here comes Tony D'Angelo. He's got 2 stooges and a girl, but they just come out with him and then send him to the ring. He goes to the ring alone. He's the Don of NXT.
Oh.
And he's a bargain basement Danny DeVito. It's like a Vince McMahon gimmick from 1995. He's doing the wise guy, the fake wise guy accent.
It's an Italian gimmick before The Sopranos.
Yes, and the only excuse for this program and the unprofessionalism and the stupidity involved with the video games and the small children and the fucking rotten music is they're trying to appeal to young people. Because all those things appeal to young people. But how is this this would have been goddamn cliche when The Godfather came out in 1972. What the fuck? It looks like a 1995 Vince McMahon gimmick next to the Goon and T.L. Hopper.
Well, the other thing too is, and maybe I'm wrong, because I know we saw some of this guy way back when we stopped watching NXT. This was one of the reasons we stopped watching NXT. I thought he was like a Brooklyn, New York gimmick, which made it particularly offensive because no one is that gimmicky, ever. Trust me, I got a lot of friends, North Jersey, all over New York. No one is that gimmicky. But he said here he's from Chicago. But the first thing Oba Femi said is what I was thinking. I don't believe anything you're saying, and I don't think you believe anything you're saying. And that's what I think.
Speaking of what Oba Femi was saying, so I said, okay, he looks great. He's got size. They're using him. He's the North American champion. And when Danny DeVito or Tony DeVito or Tony D'Angelo or whatever his name is started talking, I said, oh, no, I'm just going to skip ahead to Oba. So I skipped ahead and Oba opened his mouth and I said, oh, fuck no. God damn it.
Well, what's the problem with him?
I'm looking at this guy. If he could talk like Ernie Ladd and just work a little bit, holy mackerel, you can draw some money with this guy. He opens his mouth. He sounds like Prince Nana. What kind of accent is he? Sound like Eddie Murphy in Coming to America.
It's probably an accent
Can we go to Queens? What the?
It's his accent. What do you want him to do?
I want to know where the fuck he's from, first of all, that he's got that accent. Is that a real accent or is that a put-on accent? If it's put on, he needs to drop it. And
he's from Nigeria.
Oh,
he's the real deal.
It doesn't matter.
Hey, well, he's the real deal, except Oba Femi, it turns out, is not his real name. His real name is Isaac Udugbison.
Isaac, who dug this one?
Udugbison.
Okay, Isaac. What about Isaac Hayes? Oh, they already got a Carmelo Hayes. But I mean, it was fucking hilarious that he opens his mouth and sounds like Prince Nana or Eddie Murphy in Coming to America. And from then on, I couldn't.
The two examples you have of people from Africa? What is this?
Well, hey, more people have heard Eddie Murphy in Coming to America in the United States than have spoken to somebody from Nigeria.
Yeah, I agree with that. What's Prince Nana doing on the list?
Prince Nana is trying to do that accent as a fucking
guy's done one promo in 10 years.
Oh, he did. Well, he did him in Ring of Honor. That's the way he sounded. It's not my fault they won't let him talk. But I gave up on this whole thing. I'm like, I didn't want to laugh when Femi opened his fucking mouth, and all I can think of is goddamn him and Arsenio, cutting up around town.
All right.
So they're going to fight next week. So can he wrestle?
Well, I wanted you to see him wrestle. I didn't know they were going to have him in one of these stupid Miz TV segments.
Well, I will watch a clip.
Let's check out
later.
the match next week at least so we can see that.
So then the next contest was Jada Parker and Lola Vice versus Fatal Influence, who is Jane Wayne Gacy, remember her, and Fallon Henley. And they have a girl in her corner, and I couldn't understand the ring announcer. Who's the girl in her corner?
Oh, I didn't pay attention to any of this shit. Kaylani Jordan, I think is her name, was at
she was on Color. Yeah,
very attractive woman. Very, very attractive. But no, I wasn't. This is where they go too far. I think the opening match shouldn't have been the opening match, but having that women's title match was a good match. The crowd liked it. But they don't need to be, for every men's segment, a woman's segment. And that's what it felt like, and that's what NXT has felt like the last couple of years when I've watched it, and a lot of this shit just doesn't appeal to the male wrestling fan. Yeah, it really makes you wonder why they're doing it.
Well, you know why they're doing it, don't you?
Why?
'Cause whatever Lola wants, Lola gets.
Oh, boy.
Whatever Lola wants, Lola gets. And I wanted to fast forward, and I got it. So the heels won, and then Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill came out as a surprise and just beat the teetotal shit out of them. So I don't know what heat they got there, because then they got spread all over the canvas. Or Kansas.
Okay, Kansas. Every segment so far. Shawn and Triple H intro Julia's match. Punk and Ava backstage with Pillman Jr. Not the Zachary Wentz match. Miz TV in the previous segment, and then Jade and what's her name? Bianca. Coming out here. They had someone in every segment almost from the main roster.
Well, and that will continue. Because, like Mussolini, saving shitty TV, CM Punk came out to see what the fuck was going on. And you know what? Like, Punxsutawney Phil, he should have seen his shadow and gone back in the hole. And he wouldn't have to fucking be involved in this next match. Oh, boy.
I take it you liked it.
Trick Williams made his entrance, and the people chant, "Whoop that Trick." Now, if they like him, why do they want people to whoop him?
No, a Trick is a hooker that works for a pimp, right?
Well, no, that's back in the old days when people used words that people knew what the fuck they mean. Now they change them every 5 fucking minutes.
I guess the Trick would be the customer for the hooker, right?
Well, yes, but still,
I don't know how this works.
There is a thing they chant at ball games now. Whoop that Trick. I don't know why. But Trick Williams is his name, but the people chant whoop that Trick. Apparently, they want people to whoop Trick Williams. And Booker wouldn't shut up here. Whoop that Trick. I mean, what the fuck is going on here? So, but the people like him. And then remember Ethan Page from AEW? Well, here he became. And he now is the NXT champion. So I would say how the mighty have fallen, but actually how the small have risen. So another guy that Tony couldn't figure out what to do with or how to keep or whatever, and I never particularly liked him anyway, but they bring him over here to make him some kind of fucking star for these people. But Punk was the referee, and he was going to call it right down the middle. Brian, give me your interpretation or impression of this contest, if you would. I don't want to be the one to hog all the spotlight here.
I will now do my interpretation of this match. Ask him! Ask him! How was that?
That was pretty good.
Thank you. It was a back and forth match between Trick, who I believe they said was a former champion, and Ethan Page, who came over from TNA, that TNA boarding school that's now producing so much talent for them to have lose on national TV. I like Ethan Page. I always did. I know why you had a problem with him. I understand why. I looked past it, partly because I didn't watch that. I never saw it. But I always thought he had talent. I always thought he could do a good promo. I always thought he was a natural heel. And I always thought he was misused in AEW, whether it was him and Scorpio Sky with Dan Lambert or him with the Hardys. He never had a chance. And they're giving him a chance here.
Well, then what do you attribute the blahness of this match to, Trick?
I thought, and again, I haven't watched a lot of NXT, I thought Trick was quite sloppy. Or at least
sloppy Trick.
Or at least or at least there was a sloppiness in the way these two work together. At least that's what I thought. Now, I don't know if I'm just such a cynical fan now that I pick up on more sloppiness than I used to, or if there's just more sloppiness than there used to be.
Well, here's the thing. Trick Williams is one of these guys that is very athletic and has a lot of leaping ability, and he's in good shape, and he's got lean physique and everything, and he's awkward at pro wrestling movement. You can be a great athlete and be awkward at the same time, depending on how you're trying to apply the athleticism, right? And he's green, and maybe he's got happy feet, or he's just here's a guy who can leap up in the air and spread his wings and clothesline a guy and whatever, and that looks, wow, athletic, and he can't throw a punch. He's standing flat-footed. He's throwing his arm out in a circle. That awkward movement when it comes to applying shit to wrestling stuff. And he went at one time, he was running in and went to do the goddamn reverse neck breaker, running reverse neck breaker, and he missed Page's fucking head. He went to grab it and missed it, went right past it, and Page took the bump anyway. But that's the thing. They established Punk as the referee. There was some story to it. He separated them. He counted a couple 2 counts. He blocked a punch. He caught the guy with his foot on the ropes. And then they just had a match that was it was a match. And at one point, Page powerbombed Trick through the announce desk. And I swear to God, Trick momentarily rolled back into the ring and jumped up and knee lifted Page and missed him. But then Page fell on Trick and got a 2 count. So then Punk helps them both up when they're both down to continue fighting. And that's where they did the sloppy 1-2 into a hockey fight, missed the neck breaker, several false finishes. And then Page gave Trick the go to sleep in front of Punk and got a 2 count.
What'd you think of that? That spot where him and Punk were jawing at each other, and then what did he say? Punk said, "You're a son of a bitch," and he goes, "I'll show you how big of a son of a bitch I could be," and he does the move right in front, not facing the camera, but facing him. What'd you think?
Well, that's bringing, they tried to do something here where that Page would have some kind of goddamn bitch but I don't know what to, I like the idea of doing the guy's move in front of him, right? And he did that and got a 2 count. And then Page goes for the razor's edge. And at this point, Trick kicks his feet and gets out of it and lands on his feet and just goes into Punk's arms like he's giving him a hug. And then Punk turns him around and sets him in a corner. And Page charges, but Trick moves and hits him with another knee lift and pins him 1, 2, 3. So if you're trying to set up that when Page gave the guy Punk's move in front of Punk, that Punk would then do something to Page in some way, he didn't do anything. Trick just came down in his arms and there was no... Do you see what I'm saying here? Did that look awkward to you?
I mean, it looked awkward. It didn't look super awkward, but just regular awkward.
Well, but the thing is, Punk didn't do anything to influence the match in any way. He didn't pull him out of the corner so that Page missed.
Right down the middle. That's what he said.
He didn't pull him out of the fucking finish that Page had him in. But Page had done the thing to do his move in front of him to piss him off so that there wasn't even anything that was done where Punk was still neutral, but he made a difference accidentally in the thing. He just caught Trick and turned him around. It was an odd finish to me. But now there's a new champion.
New champion. Trick, and the people really went crazy.
But that's probably why they were there, because they were already crazy. You'd have to be crazy to go to this fucking show on purpose.
How long can they tour with this?
Till next week. After they get out of St. Louis, I hope Randy Orton knows. Maybe they're giving away tickets out there at Emo's Pizza. There's as many Emo's Pizzas in St. Louis as there will be fans in the fucking building. Probably about 5,000 or 6,000 of them.
Any closing thoughts on the main event? Trick Williams, Ethan Page, Punk is the referee?
This wasn't like, the glory days of the Attitude Era where Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, and The Undertaker were all in there and the referee was involved. Though it was just kind of like blah. It was a blah match and a blah finish. And the biggest stars on the show didn't wrestle. They refereed, they ran in, and they ran the show. But everybody else was, gee, Minnie, Pete, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be negative, but I was looking forward to it. And with half the thing being wow to begin with, Women of Wrestling or whatever, there wasn't, and the children's street fight, are we going to give it one more week because St. Louis and Randy Orton?
Well, I don't care about Randy Orton being there. I want to see the Oba Femi match. I'm at least willing to watch that.
If we know that Orton's going to be there and it's in St. Louis, there's going to be some other names there.
It's gonna,
they'll have a crowd.
That's always the worst thing when it's like Randy Orton in his hometown for some other show. He just comes out and gives a nice little introduction, and then interacts with one of their stars. Like, it'll be the same thing it always is.
Maybe he'll talk to Ava.
Oh boy, are they flying her to each place? Jesus.
No, they're putting her on a fucking Greyhound. What do you mean, are they flying her to each place? The only
appearance she made was in one little tiny backstage segment for a second.
Look at here, the money they got. You're worried about Ava's fucking plane ticket. Even if she's in business, I think they can hide that expense at this point. I'm not saying she's earning her keep or in any way necessary, but I don't think we ought to worry about them being fiscally irresponsible because they're giving her a plane ticket.
I don't think that was really the concern, but...
I know what you mean.
Either way, that was, I was about to say AEW Dynamite. NXT on CW week 1. There will at least be portions of week 2 reviewed, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
I would double dog dare any son of a bitch out there to watch this 2 hours of television and then watch any of the 2-hour OVW specials that we did and tell me which was the better television wrestling show. Honestly, not talking about production budget, but which did you rather enjoy watching? And holy shit, what the fuck? This is and we were at least on a WB affiliate, not the CW. Where did UPN go? WB and what was the other network that merged to become the CW? There was a WB network, there was the UPN network, and there was another network, and they merged to be CW, and I can't remember. What the fuck? Help me. Are you on mute?
I'm on mute, but I don't have the answer, so I can't really help you. I have no idea. There was UPN, there was CW.
They kept the W from WB network. What was the other network? There was 3 of them.
I don't know, but that was NXT on CW, and
yeah,
I think AEW may have a better show, but we'll see.
You know, boy, I'll tell you what. That is, at least now Tony Khan can be proud of something. However rotten his show is, it wasn't this rotten. At least we had more things to laugh at on Tony's programs.